And here we go. Our first moment in the sun.
Are we live? Oh God, that's me.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know. Yeah. This is not live, no.
it's not.
No, it's not, no.
Not yet.
Not yet, no.
Okay, I was playing along then. Shall we start again?
No, I don't think we should.
Well, have you started?
Because
the show?
we can't, James. We're live, yeah.
Oh, we're live now.
We are now. We're live, yeah.
Oh well, okay. Well, it's all a bit of a mash, isn't it? Really. We've no producer here this week, so we're basically on our own, and we've been trusted.
We have been trusted.
So God knows what this is going to turn out like, right?
Yeah.
Because we've not just gone for the radio, we've gone for the podcast as well.
We have. We're on video for once, but per video.
Oh God! So people are now going to see what we really look like.
They do. They will. I mean, I'm regretting
I'm Mr.
not making
Sleek.
more of an effort. Sci-fi, yeah.
Yeah. So how have you been this week?
I'm all right.
Because this is Bob 10.
This is Bob 10.
I feel like
Double
we ought to have a
figures.
party or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Bob 10.
Bob 10
what have you
indeed.
been up to this week?
Bob the 10th. What have I been up? Well, what have I
Sci-Fi,
been
the
up?
poetry guy.
You always get it in so quickly. What have I been up to? What was it yesterday? Monday.
Yes.
Monday. I did Gents Club yesterday.
You
So I was
did?
doing a Monday.
And then sent me a text that kind of upset me later on.
Oh, did I? What about going to play snooker on my own?
You cannot go practising during the week. That's against the rules.
Well, you know, it's
You're
about
already coming
personal
up on the
development.
rails. You're coming up on the rails with the snooker. And
I am. 17 I got last week.
it was 16 on Sunday.
It was 17.
Oh, well done. Nice
Yeah.
one. That's a good break.
It is for me.
Yeah.
It's my best ever, so...
Was it 5 yellows, 6 reds?
So I like to make things hard for myself.
Okay.
I remember the last 4 balls. Anyway, I think this is borderline interesting.
Oh, I would definitely think that's basically the premise of the show, isn't it? Really. So we've got Bob 10 coming along, a slice of Battenberg,
We do, yeah.
and the Battenberg is a slice of Battenberg has 4 squares.
It does,
You bring 2, I bring 2.
yes. Neither of us know which each other's got, brought.
Blind baked.
Indeed.
Blind baked.
Yeah.
So I'm really, as soon as you've set up all this wonderful equipment and so on, I think you ought to take first use of it. So, are you
Yeah.
all right going with the first square this week?
Yeah, I think I can do that.
Okay.
First square this week I'm going to talk about is the moon.
Okay.
That's my first square. It's not obviously square, it's circular. And yeah, the moon's been going through, like, there's a Mercury retrograde and stuff like that, and full moon, super full moon we just had.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, the moon is it's a mysterious thing, isn't it? And yet it's part of our everyday existence, and it's very prevalent in terms of, like, they say that the moon was one of the first things, if you like, to be artified. It's like one of the first images found from prehistoric man was of the moon, as in painted.
I guess it's bound to be, isn't it? I mean, they kind of mirrored their surroundings, and the moon is very, very, very much part of that. Yeah, I love the moon.
It's amazing, isn't it?
I love the moon. I love the moon on water. Me and Rach went out the other night and had a look at the full moon.
Yeah.
And it was just that tiny bit off. But it's yes, I think people's understanding of the moon and also their interest in the moon is probably at an all-time high as well, because we have all the readings, we have all the warnings as to what we should look for in the night sky and so on. And certainly, I mean, what does a supermoon mean?
Well, I think it's a very big moon, basically, is what it means. And that's another thing about the moon, isn't it? That it somehow it gets it gets projected in a certain way into the
It's not
the
a
eye.
projection.
Well, it must be. Everything's a projection in terms of, like, onto our eye, the way we interpret stuff. But there's an optical illusion with the moon, because it does change size, or appears. Obviously, it's always the same size.
No, it does change size.
But it does look as if it changed sizes. So
It does.
There's some sort of. Oh, you actually believe
No,
it
it does. It does. I mean, in the Earth's in the moon's orbit to ourselves, it gets closer and further away.
Ah, that's what happens. Yeah.
And
Okay.
my understanding of a supermoon is when it's at its closest to us.
That makes a lot of
So
sense.
the moon does get further away and closer to us at various times of its cycle. But this is very much not a monthly cycle. This is I mean, a couple of years back we had the closest moon that we'd had for 48 years. So there are points within its orbit where it's at its closest to Earth, and that's when it's at its most magnificent, of course.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, of course, people go out to see it. They go out to dark places to see it, so they can get the detail, and it's a wonderful sort of celestial body sort of looking over us, isn't it?
Yeah.
It gives the tranquility, a feel of atmosphere sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I like it when you find somewhere dark enough in the world, it's not with minimal light pollution, and you actually can get proper moonlight, and the moon casts a shadow on you.
Well, that's your kind of place, isn't it?
You know, my favourite time of the year now.
Oh, yeah, glasses are falling off. There you go. Happens a lot, that one. No. When you go outside and just bathe yourself, if you like, in moonlight, I find that one of the most. It's almost warm, even on the coldest of nights. It's a warm. I mean, you talked about Prism and how white was put together recently, and it being the full spectrum of all the colours and so on.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think what gets me about the moon, and I'm sure other people have thought the same, or quite possibly, is that I still find it amazing that it is pretty much the exact same size as the sun. I know that it's like an obvious thing, but I mean, how...
But I do that if I catch
How
a
is
fish,
that?
I put it out in front of me so it looks a bit bigger. I mean, the moon is a lot closer to us than the sun. But many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times smaller.
Yeah, of course. I mean...
It's just been fooling you, I know.
You know me, I'm toasted because, yeah. What I mean, I thought the sun is obviously massive, hugely far away compared to the moon, but on the perspective of things, they are pretty much the same size, aren't they?
I guess so, yeah. I guess so. I mean, they are part of our environment, part of our night sky, aren't they? I like it when you can get both the sun and the moon in the same sky.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens
like
quite regularly,
eclipses.
especially when the moon is low in the sky or is late leaving us at various times in the year. Generally in the winter months, I believe. And you can sort of see that moon in the blue sky, if you like, with the sun in the same sky.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
That's pretty cool.
It moves along with you, doesn't it? When you're travelling along, the moon
kind of fools the flat earthers, that, I think.
probably not the only
So
thing.
how does the moon affect you? Is it something that is...
Well,
because it tends to affect things, doesn't it? It affects the tides, it affects
this
people.
This is what they say. I mean, there's a lot of just stuff about the moon. Obviously, like, well, they say menstruation's a big one, isn't it? That goes with the lunar cycle.
Yes.
Where the hell that came from
The 28-day lunar cycle.
Yeah, is quite something, really. And
Tides.
it goes with the year, doesn't it? I mean, for some reason, the moon pretty much to the dot goes around our Earth, our little ball, 12 times in a year.
Yeah.
Which is quite something as well. The synchronicities, which you mentioned before, there's some beautiful synchronicities with the moon, which I find quite amazing. We talk about the full moon making people go, crazy, like lunar.
Do you get hair on your palms or anything?
I
Oh, the moon's coming.
I can't remember most full moons.
You can't.
No, one day either side.
When you wake up with
But
those broken manacles, you don't wonder what's happened.
No, I have a taste of blood in my mouth.
Yeah.
But I can't.
I haven't seen
explain.
Jangles for a while.
Neither have I.
He's in the freezer, isn't he?
I seem to have a lot of meat around the post moon.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Luna. I mean, our
Luna.
dog is called Luna.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's also in terms of the effects of the moon. Isn't that where lunatic comes from?
Yes. Well, this is it, isn't it? Yeah, lunatics.
Mm.
And there was the Lunar Men, who
Yeah.
were a famous Enlightenment group of thinkers, who would meet every full moon. The reason being because in those days, when there was no lamps or what have you, no electrics, the moon was the best time to travel on the roads because there was that much light. natural light.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was the safest time of the month to travel by night. So they'd meet
Nobody
every full
could
moon.
ambush you and sort of sneak up on you.
Yeah, it was less likely.
Yeah, yeah. I missed the moon when I hadn't seen it for a few days. You know, when you get these grotty sort of weeks that you get about this time of the year in March, where it's just sort of, what's happening with the weather? Nothing really. It's kind of grey.
Yeah.
And you miss the moon on those. You sometimes see the sort of aura of the moon coming through thin cloud or whatever. But that wonderful vista when you can actually see the various features on the moon, you know, the various seas and the various volcanic or meteor strikes and so on. You know, the way the kids all think that it's the man in the moon and it's made of cheese, if you like.
Yeah.
All those sort of indentations that make the moon so wonderfully entertaining, interesting.
Yeah, and like so precious. Like in terms of the amount of people that have been on the moon is a handful. I don't know how many it is.
They do. They do
it's
say.
not many, is it?
I think it's less than 20, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd presume so. Yeah.
I think
Once
it's less
they've
than
been-
20.
They didn't bother going back that much. I think it was kind of one of those things. It's like, we've done this now. We've scared the Russians enough or what have you that we're not.
Well,
going
there's
to bother
quite
going
a lot of. I mean, and the thing is, with NASA at the moment, they're looking to they've got so many spacecraft already out there and so much data being processed. I mean, the Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 have now both left our solar system. Simply left it, and are now, I think, somewhere between 4.5 and 6 billion miles away. I can't remember now, but it's an enormous distance, and we're still getting radio signals from those two spacecraft, and that's just
That's
extraordinary. And the last photo recently came from Voyager 2 on the grounds that it's now too far away, and it was a picture of our own solar system from outside of it.
That's amazing.
And that was just really cool.
Yeah.
But they are talking, I mean, our orange-headed fool across the Atlantic, basically, he wants to take them all to Mars.
Everybody's to Mars.
I think he
Take
just
the Mexicans to Mars.
I think he should go on his own.
Yeah. I think, yeah. See him, tell him there's a really cheap plot of land that you could put a hotel on there or something. And
Oh, if you told him he could put a Trump Tower on Mars, that'd be
Yes.
fantastic.
he'd be like, yes,
Yeah.
we're going to do it. I've been honoured by the Martians.
That'd be great if the Russians were there first, wouldn't it?
It would be beautiful.
No collusion.
I did not get pissed on.
I don't know. But the moon. No, moon is one of my favourite things, and certainly having gone night fishing at various times in my life, the moon is a companion in that, and a wonderful companion
It's
that
a beautiful
makes
thing.
the night. And it's basically you bringing the moon to Bob has basically made me think, well, sometime this summer, the kids, anyone else who wants to come, need to go to one of these dark areas in the UK.
Yeah.
And there are over 100 of them, and I think you can look at them in terms. I think it's the Meteorological Office may have the information, but we'll perhaps post it up on our Facebook page later. But you can go to these areas, and there is so little ambient light that it's brilliant for nighttime photography. But if you're not a photographer, and often I forget to take photographs when I'm in situations that are so beautiful, where you've got a full night sky and you can spend the night sort of looking at the meteor showers and so on. We had a night last summer in our garden where we had about 5 or 6, like in a sort of bus with their seats, and we were all watching different areas of the sky, and someone would go, "There's one!" And you go, "I never saw it." And you really have to look at a certain area of sky and concentrate on that. So otherwise, you only see them in the peripheral vision. But that night, I think we must have seen 100 meteors. And that's quite an extraordinary thing to sit there in the darkest place you can find and just admire.
Yeah, people just lie on the fields, and I've seen that. It is wonderful. Stargazing, I haven't done that for ages properly. And it is a wonderful thing. My dad had a telescope, which broke slightly and hasn't used it since or what have you. But when he did have it out, I remember we looked up at the moon, or I looked up at the moon through his telescope, and there was this one little star that was right next to the moon, which you couldn't see with the naked eye.
Wow.
And it was one of those moments in life where you're like, it's really cliche, isn't it? But it's like your eyes, it's not all what's up there. You can't see it all. And there's more than meets the eye.
Isn't it wonderful how our understanding is still very much at its early stages? Again, I think it's another NASA program, but at the moment they are using the Hubble telescope, and also I believe it's called the Kepler telescope, in order to identify new planets. And they've got a milestone coming up on the grounds that they will have discovered planets around stars. They will now have identified for definite 4,000 planets. Now that's not my school days. I mean, my school days we were aware that there were other galaxies, and everything was only a small part of it. Our solar system was only a small part of it. But to be now able to identify through our technology actual planets that, you know, we are 100% sure are planets and not stars. We always thought there were more stars in the sky than planets. It would turn out that there's probably more planets than stars. And those types of understandings and those times, they fill me with wonderment. And I'm glad you brought them in.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it. Right, is it me?
I believe so.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Because I've already lost
you haven't forgot it, have you?
No, I've dropped it somewhere.
He's lost his square.
Oh no, this isn't good. I've actually brought one of my all-time idols, and my all-time idol is Ian Dury.
Okay.
And I'm going to do it without notes. Yeah, the poets, the rock poets, the punk poet, if you
From
like.
Leeds.
No, he's not.
Is he not?
No, he's very much not. No, he's from. He was originally from Harrow in Middlesex.
Okay.
But he was a war baby.
Right.
And he essentially his mum and dad split up at the end of the war, as many relationships sadly did. And his mum took him to live in Essex with an aunt and a couple of cousins and so on.
Yeah.
And then in 1949, he was born in 1942. In 1949, he developed polio, which left him severely affected, to the point where he could essentially only walk and sort of waddle with a stick, if you like, but also had a long-term and lifelong paralysis down one side. And this was a guy that, he was a wartime baby, his parents had split up, he'd gone to live in there, and he fell into a sort of solitude because of his issues, which concentrated on art and music, and which took him out of himself. And this extraordinary young chap, in his sort of late teens and 20s, then decided he was starting a band. So in 1942, he was born, and he started his first band in about 1974-75, which was a band called Kilburn and the High Roads.
Right.
And he had the gall, as a very disabled man, to essentially go and be the front man for a pub band. And he wrote the songs. And he used his poetry and his use of words, as you do, to amuse, to shock, and to just engage people and show that, I think he was showing that you could still have a joy or a joie de vivre in those types of circumstances. Now, the first time I came across Ian Dury was with Kilburn and the High Roads. Now, unfortunately, I didn't see them. I would have loved to have seen Kilburn and the High Roads. But I did see the next incarnation, which was Ian Dury and the Blockheads. And for a short period, from about 1977 through to about 1981, Ian Dury was one of the most well-known people in the UK. And he was kind of revered, feared, and all sorts, because he was everything that the punk movement was about, but he was so much not part of the punk movement, because by 1977 he was 35 years old.
Right.
And it was a youth thing, was punk.
Yeah.
And yet he was so... And the music was pub rock, if you like.
So what's made you bring him today?
I brought him today because it is actually the anniversary of his death today. He died in 2000.
Right.
So he managed to make it as a polio guy, severely disabled at 7, with all sorts of terrible health problems all the way through his life. He actually managed to make it to 58. And he filled many of my listening hours with joy. And the album that did that for me initially was an album called New Boots and Panties.
Right.
And it was put out in 1977, and it was raucous. And it was probably the greatest mishmash of words and just joyful jamming, if you like, that I'd heard at that point in time. And at that point, I was absolutely, unapologetically an Ian Dury fan. And I went through it. I went through the next, 15 years, if you like, watching how he went and how he developed. But that New Boots and Panties, I still listen to. And as a poet, I think you just, I don't know if you not heard much Ian Dury, really?
Not really. I've heard of it.
He was cheeky, but he was also rude, lewd, obscene, in your face, and yet he had a sensitivity.
Yeah.
And it was every day, but it was no day. It had no place, and yet it was everywhere. Now, I've actually brought you some lyrics that I thought you might like, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Now, I kind of apologise to our bobbers, because it is probably dated. It is probably, but it's essentially it's a song about conquest.
Yeah.
And about being a bit of a cocky sort of chirpy chappy, if you like. And it's called Billericay Dicky. Have you heard it?
No.
And it starts, "Good evening, I'm from Essex, as if you couldn't tell. My given name is Dicky. I come from Billericay, and I'm doing very well." And he'd and then the music would come in, and he'd go bang,
Yeah.
and then he'd come up with these wonderful melodic riffs. So the next bit was, "Had a love affair with Nina in the back of my Cortina.
Oh, yeah.
A seasoned up hyena could not have been more obscene. She took me to the cleaners and other misdemeanors, and I got right up between her, rubbing her ribena." Yes, so you get the feel.
Yeah.
So as a sort of 15, 16-year-old lad talking about sex in a song where sex had been so absent from, and nudity, and it was the time of Mary Whitehouse, for God's sake. And, you couldn't have swearing on the telly. Johnny Lydon swearing on, or Johnny Rotten as he was then, swearing on live telly. It was about the shock value. But Ian Dury transcended that. He transcended that through himself, on the grounds that the guy, whenever Ian Dury and the Blockheads, anyone else who's seen him, they'll know this, whenever he went on stage, he was led on stage. He had to be helped on the stage.
Crikey.
And then he'd do 2.5 hours of the most extraordinary performance that just grasped you. Such a small man. I don't think Ian Dury was probably 5'3", 5'4". He was tiny, he was skinny, he was almost emaciated. But this passion came out of him. And for me, he's one of the 2 best frontmen of bands I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
One is Ian Dury, because that charisma, that drawing you into everything else that's going around. He generally had about a 9, 10, even 15-piece band. Great musicians, being given full rein to go at whatever they wanted to go at, really, within the constraints of being Ian Dury and the Blockheads. And yet, you couldn't take your eyes off him. And the other one that I went to see that I've seen who felt exactly the same. And all he did, and hey, we've got a podcast, we can do this. And all he did was walk on from the back of the stage, put his arms out like that, and just go. And you might think that might be Noel Gallagher or someone like that, but it wasn't. It was Maxi Jazz at Faithless. And the whole audience just went and embraced him.
Yeah.
And he hadn't said a word.
Yeah.
And some people have that extraordinary charisma.
Maxi Jazz is amazing for that. I saw that was one of the first acts. I think the first ever gig I went to was Faithless.
Was it?
Yeah.
What a
I
great
remember him.
start.
It was
It's basically one of the best ever I've seen.
They were amazing.
I've
That
seen
was a week
hundreds.
before my first pill, so like admit to that one. But yeah,
Oh, okay.
which was it was amazing. It was like me and my
Music
mate
and
were
drugs.
like, yeah, sort of like it was 16, 17.
Ian Dury was more alcohol.
Mm.
It was more Dr. Feelgood, if you like. It were bottles of whiskey. It was fags and pub culture, if you like.
Yeah. Maxie's very composed, isn't he? I think that's part of his aura, isn't it? He's just
Well,
got these.
I mean, he's got
just
an
the way he
advantage on
sings.
the grounds. He's got Sister Bliss on the keyboard, who sort of gives him. And generally, they come in. He comes into God is a DJ. You know, so he's got a fair. He's got a fair.
Star.
Yeah. Whereas Ian Dury comes into sex and drugs and rock and roll.
Oh, was that him?
Do, 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 do. Yeah. That was another one that. And the other interesting thing about Ian Dury was, if you bought the album New Boots and Panties, you don't get Reasons to Be Cheerful. You don't get Hit Me With Your Rhythm Stick. You don't get
Okay.
What a Waste. You don't get Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll because they're not on the album. Because he actually said to his audience, look, buy my album, great. But you're not then buying the same thing all over again as a single. I'll put something else out. So he put out the more tasterish ones, if you like. The Clash did the same at one point. They didn't have singles off the album. It might have been, mind you, I'm not sure there was that many singles off that album. But I think Sandinista, for example, was not given. There were no singles off it. And I think that's something that the album they could perhaps go back to now, on the grounds that it would probably challenge artists far more to not keep on going over and over and over and over and over again, reissuing the same thing, if you like. Ian Dury was very against that.
Yeah.
But his art was also tremendous. He was big friends with Sir Peter Blake, who is the pop artist, who was very much who did Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album cover.
Yeah.
So he was revered by others as well, who were also very talented and and they got him. And Ian Dury. Rest in peace, Ian. You gave me an enormous amount of pleasure. And if you get the chance to go and see the Blockheads are still around.
Okay.
And I'd probably put it up on the Facebook page perhaps later on, a link to, there is a track called Blockheads. And Ian Dury sings it, and it's a real sort of venom-spitting song. Blockheads, blockheads. And then he just lets them go, the band that he's put together. And it's got Wilco Johnson, it's got Chaz Jankel. It's that type of era. And David Payne on the double sax for Hit Me With Your Rhythm Stick, isn't it? He just lets them go. And they express themselves, and that's what Ian did, and that's what the Blockheads do. So if you still get the chance to go and see either Wilco Johnson or the Blockheads, you'll get a taste of what I mean about Ian Dury, because they all loved him, and I often see their posts missing him. And he's been gone 19 years today.
Yeah, I mean, when you
I miss
first,
him.
when you first mentioned him, I didn't clock you were talking about, but then you started to sing some of the songs.
Well,
I'd say, or poet, whatever.
yeah, he was a poet though. I mean, if you look at Hit Me With Your Rhythm Stick, I mean, Hit Me With Your Rhythm Stick, Je t'adore, Iklibedik. I mean, that went to #1, and it was #1 for about seven weeks or something stupid. For a guy who was war baby, polio at 7, severely disabled, pub rock band, all of a sudden he was on top of the pops. And I think a lot of people felt uncomfortable with his appearance, because he used to wear, he used to affect a little glove on one hand with sort of knuckle duster on it or something like that, and he would, like yourself, he wore eye makeup for a long while.
Oh, did he?
And he created a persona, but it was not about the persona, it was about the essence of who he was. And I think a lot of artists could really learn from that.
Yeah, I'll have to give him a look out. Sounds like an interesting performer. I mean, I remember from the songs there, again, I can hear them in my head now, or the poems, whatever, riffs, whatever you want to call them. The real soul in his voice. It's very different. I mean, I'm just thinking of this historically and where it all fits in, like the punk movement, that very that sexual cultural revolution that happened in the 1970s
It was an attitudinal revolution,
against
yeah.
the fuddy-duddies or what have you, the primrose hedges of suburbia, what have you. I'm just wondering where
Can you
that's
have a
left
hedge of
my.
primrose? I love that.
Yeah, why
That'd be
not?
brilliant, wouldn't it? About a 6-foot primrose.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wonder where it leaves our generation, or my generation below, slightly above. There's the space for being crude and lewd. It's been done. You can't really. I mean,
Has
I suppose in some ways it has. It has. I mean, you can suppose
It's kind of frowned on nowadays, isn't it? If you go, you can go sort of get over the line, can't you?
Even like the rap these days. If you say that went beyond it again and started to talk about guns and violence more, it was a much more American thing. That again, Eminem, I guess, was one of the last rappers or poets who really pushed the establishment and went after everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe it does come in waves. I suppose you could even call Rory McIlroy very different. Conor McGregor he's someone who does not give a.
Oh, he's
a
retired
toss.
today.
Has he?
Yeah, he's
Oh,
retired
okay.
from MMA. I think he's just after them sort of.
It's PR.
Yeah, I think it's PR.
Yeah,
But he is 32, 33 now, and he's got beat in his last 2 or 3.
Has he?
So.
Okay.
And he did make 100 million from the Floyd Mayweather fight.
Yeah.
So maybe
he's got enough.
maybe he's got enough. But
Yeah.
But I think with Conor McGregor, it's about keeping his excesses inside himself, and the more he goes on, the more he's going to get caught. I think. But
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Possibly, yeah.
But yeah, with the cultural stuff, I'd punk was interesting. Maybe we need another punk revolution. Maybe we need another sexual revolution.
Or something different. I mean, that's what made punk so special. It was different. And come on, kids, bring something different.
Yeah.
There are so many opportunities to get your personality out there. Surely there is a movement about to happen, and I hope there is.
Yes. I feel
Because
there
at the
is.
moment, it seems to be all a bit nichey and
Commercial. Yeah.
Yeah, but that is this. I've got to tell you, that is the key to getting old. Watching a pop show and going, what is this crap?
Yeah.
Because that's what my parents did when Top of the Pops were on. They go, oh, what are you watching this for? Or
The difference is that generation, literally people of my age will go, what is this crap? As in the pop stuff. Because it is crap, it's just musically poor, it's not different. It's just
yeah, that's true. That's
I think
true.
that's it. Shall I? Right.
Do you want to go for your second square side by the
Why
boat
not?
guy?
Well, this is.
I don't know why I
talking
get
about-
posh when I say that. I do, don't I?
It's a high end. It's not really.
It's high. I think it sort of brings out the best in me.
Okay. My second square this week is inheritance.
Okay.
Which I feel rather blessed by. I think it's a curse and a blessing, and I feel very much free monetarily from my inheritance now, which I've been in some ways waiting for a long time.
Okay, that's honesty for you.
Yeah, and it's something I'm really relishing. It's making me focus.
So if you've nothing to fall back on, is that what you mean? You're sort of you've taken away your safety net, and you're not interested in what could happen in the future. You're actually just doing it.
Well, no, it is about the future, I guess. I suppose what I find the curious thing, at least my experience of it, it's a blessing and a curse at the same time. It gives you safety, but at the same time, it gives you potentially absolutely zero motivation to do anything at all in life. So it becomes, and I'm not playing a victim at all in this, or at least I'm hoping not to come across that way. It can, I believe, or in my experience, in some ways it's held me back.
Yeah.
Because I've never had to fight. So it's like, and I'm a guy who is a lifestyler, and I don't work unless I have to. And so not having to work, I'm like, well, why would I bother then? So it's not. I think it's
I think it's a little bit sad that on the grounds if you are weighed by your parents, if you are weighed by your grandparents and what they've done and what they've had. I must admit, during my I always wanted to please my dad, so I kind of went down routes that I thought he would be interested in and more engaged with. And I think that's possibly where I made a mistake for quite a while, doing things that other people wanted me to do because it fit the pattern, if you like. Right. If you do this, you will get to this point where you will have this, and you'll be secure, and you'll be, and off you go. And I struggled with that because I didn't fit the box.
Yeah.
And certainly pressures of expectations of other generations, not necessarily their wealth or their money, has certainly driven me. But I could see you'd have to be fairly fit. No, it's feckless, isn't it? If you've got somebody else sort of supporting you. I'm in a situation where I haven't got a lot of money at this moment in time, and I really struggle with other people helping out because it's almost as if it is an admission of my own failure.
Yes, yeah, I think it can, and that's still. I think that's what it is potentially, in my experience as well. In terms of like, if you're not making it yourself, then there is no particular self-worth in that. I mean, my parents, I've never.
Or self-development.
Or self-development, absolutely.
Yeah.
My parents were never have always let me do what I want to do. Basically, that include culturally, socially, and monetarily, essentially. I mean, I've always wanted my parents to be proud of me, but I've never wanted to please them in that way. Like, I've always had my own path, and I'm certainly like they've, as you know, you mentioned on the show last couple of weeks ago when my dad filled in. I was going to
Leaf Wing, yeah.
And he was very supportive.
Good show, that one, by the way.
And
it's different, but it's a good show. Different. It's a good show.
And he was very supportive, and he is absolutely supportive. But I think the general argument I'm making, and I don't want to come across as really ungrateful, but I think there's being kind and supportive universally, and always being there to help out is not necessarily the best thing.
No, it's like learning to swim, isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly.
There are very, very many different ways of teaching a child to swim, from the chuck 'em in and see what happens type approach to the we'll be right by your side all the time, and we're not going to go out the shallow end, and
absolutely
that type of cosseting almost, isn't it?
Yeah. And I guess it's been there for me, and maybe I don't say there's a strategy there, but if their strategy was help him as much as possible until he really is ready to leave the nest, perhaps that'll work. I don't think it. I think it's turned out that way, and I've always known that I can ask for money and get it. But it's my decisions in life have always been my decisions. My parents have never put anything on me, which could be seen as an absolute luxury, but others could see as
blank canvas.
Blank canvas, yes. So yeah, in inheritance, I feel like I'm in the world now. And I'm choosing to be on a level playing field. I mean, yes, you could say I've had all the investment up into me to this point, but from now on, that is my own making. What I've done with what I do with my experiences from this day forward will be my own.
Yes.
And I'm really relishing that because I fancy myself. Like, it sounds quite pompous, but
you can't tell.
It's dreadful, innit? There'll be eyes rolling. But I'm really up for it. Give me a level playing field. It sounds really ultra competitive. It's not communalism that we're all going to help each other.
Give us a mark out of 10. Are you going to get your head through that door now?
No, probably not. But I'm up. Yeah, I mean,
I want my kids
for fighting in my own life. I guess.
I want my kids to have the opportunities and choices. And I think there is a difficulty as a parent. It depends on how much they've involved yourself in all the things that you've done. For me, I look to experience and learn from and be part of my kids' lives. And that, to me, is my legacy to them, if you like. Rather than, hopefully, also there'll be some money coming their way. Pensions and things like that, should anything happen to me. But I really feel it's about filling the time that you have with the living, if you like, rather than waiting for them to die to give you what they've got. Spending as much time understanding where you come from, where you could go to, and what. Yeah, supportive parents are. I think both my parents have generally been pretty supportive. They've certainly been supportive financially, and that is a very important thing sometimes, because without the finance, often opportunities are not there. I mean, I've recently paid for my son and daughter to both go on holiday, and that, or help pay for that. And in those circumstances, you've got to be very proud of that, I guess. And that pride of provision is very much part of it. It's something I haven't done as well as I'd like to, and perhaps I still will do well, providing for others. At various times I've provided everything for others. But the key factor for me, and the legacy and the inheritance, is about those shared moments, that's those shared times. And you can't put a price on learning, you can't put a price on the experiential, and you can't put a price on how that stays with you for the rest of your life.
Yes. There was a quote the other day read out about if you want to know how rich you are in life, count the things that money can't put a price on. And I think that's really nice. It's a good way to look at the world.
What did you come up with?
What did I come up with?
If you're counting the things that you couldn't put a price on.
Oh,
things like love.
Love, yeah.
Yeah.
Love's a biggest one. I don't think.
Yeah.
What else can you want other than love?
Well, emotions and feelings. I mean, it is, isn't it? I mean, I'm thinking to the sort of roller coaster of emotions that we have on a day-to-day basis, and for me, it is I suppose it's for everybody, the peaks and the troughs that you remember. I mean, I was blobbing my eyes out the other night, and had an enormous amount of emotion going through me. I watched a show on BBC. It's on the iPlayer, and it's about Grenfell.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not about the fire.
Right.
And yet it is about the fire. And it's about the school that had to be closed down, and all the kids that had to be moved out of the borough and so on. And then they come back and they reopen their school, and they have a musical.
No.
And they have, what's his name, Gareth from the choir.
Oh, yes, yes.
And he comes in, and I feared the worst at that point. I thought it might become mawkish or a bit sort of sentimentalised or whatever, and it didn't. It was the sheer power of the emotion of humanity and survival on a day-to-day basis, and it is those experiential things that I want to pass on to my kids. I want to enjoy those peaks of emotion, those important moments. It's why people say, I want to see my kids grow up, if you like. And they don't want to go because they want to see more and more and more of that, because you learn from it and you also contribute to it. And in contributing as part of your inheritance, it is those memories that are number one, that are priceless. Secondly, be a great provider. I wish I was better at it, and I still yearn to be so.
Well,
but I try my best.
Yeah.
And
well, this is where I want to be.
the balance is somewhere between the two.
Yeah, I mean it's you quite rightly said you can.
You have a golf course next door.
In either ways.
Are you thinking about putting Denise and Steve in one of the bunkers or something like that? No. It's not crossed your mind that you could sort of knock them off or something.
Well, no, and I'm getting to a point in my life, well, I have for the last couple of years, of really starting for the water wheel to start going the other way, and especially with my dad, it was a great moment for me a few months ago of actually taking my dad's bank account details to give him some money, and I bought him a sofa and stool a couple of months ago as well, and that just got delivered. And I'm slowly starting to give back to my dad what he's given to me over the years, and that's probably one of the most satisfying things for me at the moment.
So cathartic almost, yeah.
Yeah, it's just
feel it. Yeah.
He's been so good to me, and I really want to look after him as he go for the rest of his life. And one of my aims still is to have enough money to put him and his partner around the world. Give him a 10 grand holiday, because he's paid for my travelling over the years.
Fantastic.
So those kind of things for me are like.
I think
really
purely
important.
and simply the fact that you want to do that means your dad has probably done a pretty good job with you.
Yeah, I think he has. Yeah.
And your mum too, of course. And we both come from broken homes, if you like,
Yeah.
where our parents are no longer together for a myriad of different reasons. And yet our parents have done well financially. I suppose, and I think it sounds also that they've also done pretty well in terms of input with you. I like that blank canvas thing.
Yeah.
I've never had that. I've always had quite stern direction often as a youngster. But neither my mother or father are ever short of advice, shall we say.
Right, yes.
And yet are very supportive and can be really pleased for me too.
Yeah.
So maybe it's they're the ones that are getting the balance right. But it's parenting is like plaiting fog.
Yeah, I've heard it's one of the most difficult things to do.
Yeah.
So, I think parents can be great in one area, not great in another. It's all, there's always holes. And I think as kids we'll always be the ones to point out the bits which they've been bad at.
Well, I'm always polite and I always say if I've got the kids in tow, if you like, is it all right if I bring the kids? And I've never ever had anything other than a positive reaction to that. On the grounds that I hope my kids are far better balanced at 15 and 9 than I am at 56, and I think they are. And if I've had any input into that from my life experience, and also being able to be close to them and understand what their requirements are, and knowing when to be quiet as well. That doesn't come easy.
Tell me about it. I'd love to know when to just zip it. Right.
Okay.
Inheritance.
So inheritance.
There we go.
Still waiting.
Well, now I've spent it. That's the great
Oh,
thing.
you've spent it already?
I've spent it, and I don't want any more. From now on, it's going the other way. That's my attitude.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Nice one. Well, my second square is it reminds me of one of yours, really.
You're right.
On the
With one of
grounds,
my
it's
socks
a bit
on.
amorphous.
Amorphous. What do you mean?
Well, I don't know whether it matters or not.
You say my
But-
squares don't matter.
No, it's this one, because it's
Okay.
what I brought this week is size.
Size. Oh.
Size. Now you've alluded to this with the moon and the sun and so on, and I thought I'd sort of pose the question to our bobbers and to
Yes.
our audience
Please
and so
do.
on, as to whether size
Nice.
matters.
Does size matter?
Now, size is something that can be measured in width,
Steve,
height,
I'm wondering how long
breadth,
it's going to take you to talk about Mr.
girth.
Slake's title with this square.
Well, I mean, obviously size is important to me, but it can be measured in volume, it can be measured in mass, it can be measured in... We use all sorts of things to evaluate what
Population.
is big or small.
Yes.
And the truth is,
It's all relative.
it's all relevant. I mean, we talk about whether or not... I've got the dogs in the car at the moment, and I've got a big dog and a little dog.
Right.
But I haven't, because a big dog is not even the size of a small horse. And a small horse is only... A big horse is much smaller than a small elephant.
But it is a big dog.
It's all about relative things. And size for me, yes, it is important. And yes, I was going to bring Mr. Sleek into this. Look, I have people making all sorts of comments to me over the last 3 or 4 months. And they range from, don't lose any more weight, you look unhealthy. Well, get bloody used to it, because I'm a lot more healthy than I ever was. And tonight, I'm going to hit my target. I weighed in this morning, and it looks like I'll hit my target. And the target is essentially 5 stone. Now, when you look at 5 stone, you think, oh Christ, 5 stone, that's enormous. Yeah? Well, is it? because I'm still very much the same person. I still think exactly the same inside. I still feel the same, and yet every bugger is treating me differently. And some people are really pulling away from me. I mean, we were down at the Gumption Centre earlier talking about coffee, and Ben came in.
Mm.
And what did Ben say?
Yes.
Please don't lose any more weight, because I don't want to be the fat bastard in the building.
Yeah.
And it almost puts people on the spot. If you do something that's as perhaps wide-ranging as losing a third of your body weight, or nearly, then you're essentially going to bring yourself open to scrutiny. And I've really struggled with this because people deal with me differently. Even my kids. They're sort of... Having said that, there have been lots of positive rub-offs as well.
Yeah.
On the grounds that Thomas now is going to the gym 3 times a week.
Hey, that's great.
And he's actually buffing up. And, yeah, saw him out with his mate and a couple of girls last week. You know, and his confidence.
Yeah.
So size matters in terms of confidence. Size
Yeah.
matters in terms of how you act.
Yeah.
Whether or not you bring
You've
a
come
sense of physical intimidation to a situation,
Sure.
or whether, like Ian Dury, you can carry off charisma
Yeah.
without that size. I mean, Maxi Jazz is massive. He's about 6'3", I think, isn't he?
Okay.
I don't know. He looks it. He's very slim, though, isn't he?
He's a skinny guy, yeah.
Yeah, really slim, and very buff. I mean, he comes on stage with no shirt, for example.
Yeah.
So there's an element of confidence about size.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
shape.
confidence is, if you've got a lot of confidence, you don't need a lot else, do you, really, in some degrees? I mean, obviously, to back things up, but as an intro,
Yeah.
confidence is the big thing. I mean, you come across as quite a confident guy, though, and you've obviously been big for quite a lot of your life. Would you say that the size has affected your confidence?
Well, size has been very important. I mean, I played rugby for 24 years, at the age of about 4 through to about age of 28. And size is enormously important on a rugby field.
Yeah.
So your physical mass and the velocity that you hit something is essentially something that is a game changer.
Mm.
And I think that's true in every single relationship that we have. You might have, I mean, your taste in women, for example. Is it size related? Could you date somebody who was 600 pounds?
I don't know what that is, but
Or
that's-
60 pounds? You know,
Well, I like...
there are extremes in size that affect how you
Yes.
react to that individual and that person, and that's something I've become extraordinarily aware of.
Right.
I used to take the attitude. My dad used to be very, very size affected. So if we went to a rugby club do or something, he'd say, "God, look at the size of that bloke," and it'd be somebody who was 6'9".
Mm.
Now I would look at somebody like that on a rugby field and think, well, the bigger they are, the harder they fall.
Mm.
Whereas a lot of people would kind of walk away from that. They'd back away, they'd avoid, because somebody was almost freakish in what they'd done, if you like, or who they were and how they presented themselves. And a 6'9" person dominates not just the space that they're in because they're so large, but also dominates the conversation. Oh,
Yeah,
what's the weather
potentially,
like up there, type thing, you know.
Yeah.
And somebody's size is the first thing that you kind of pick up about them. Whether they're a physical threat or not, I guess.
Potentially, yes. I mean, for me, size can matter, I think. I mean, does it matter? It's with the Great Danes, for example, the bigger the dog, the less they bark, isn't it? There's size on that. It does equal confidence. If you are bigger, you're usually more docile because you know you don't really need to shout a big game. You just have a big game, and that's the way it is. And perhaps that moves over to other forms of life. You know, the more insecure you feel in the situation.
Do you think the smaller the person, the
usually-
bigger the dog? That happens sometimes, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, I've seen YouTube videos of small, full elderly lady getting absolutely whizzed off her heels because of a big dog.
Yeah.
Size. I mean, it is all relative, isn't it? I mean, I I've thought quite a few times about how tiny we are, how thin we are. It doesn't matter how big you are. Compared to the size of a planet you're talking about, or a sun, we're all absolutely minuscule, really, on the grand scheme of things. And yet we have all these seemingly complex thoughts. We don't know what the most complex thoughts are out there. But yeah, I mean, size, as you say, is all relative.
The universe. There's that wonderful picture, isn't it? That is we talked earlier on about from Voyager.
Yeah.
And it's called the blue pixel, isn't it?
I don't know.
And essentially, it's a highly HD, extremely clear photo of the from way out in space of Earth.
Yeah.
And essentially, the Earth is one blue pixel on the picture.
Yeah.
And that is just gives an extraordinary. When you then zoom into that one blue pixel, and you suddenly find it's a globe. Spinning through space at, I don't know, thousands and thousands and thousands of miles an hour, and tilting on its axis, and the sun assisting it to maintain itself and hurtling through space round an orbit.
Yeah.
Those sort of size things just become mind-blowing.
Yeah, and that's the other point about size. You talk about weight, and obviously the weight of something depends on how fast it's going as well. So it could be the tiniest thing like a bullet, but that has a huge amount of power if it's going fast enough, whereas just a huge object has zero weight, potentially, or force in the world. It depends what you're doing with it, isn't it?
Oh, very much so. I love that experiment. I think Brian Cox did it, and it's about weight and gravity, and what is created by the motions of the universe, if you like. And I think it was first Galileo that hypothesized it, and that was with the absence of gravity. If you dropped a bucket full of coal, I think it was cannonball actually. If you dropped a cannonball and a bag of feathers in the absence of gravity, then they'll hit the ground at the same time.
No, I think it's just
Isn't that it?
no, the gravity has. It's the point about air resistance. So it doesn't matter how heavy something is. If you've got it,
So it's in a vacuum. It's in a vacuum.
Things will
isn't it?
drop at the same time. They
So
proved that by going to the moon, where there isn't zero gravity still. It's just very low gravity, but things will still drop at the same time regardless of their weight.
Okay. So exactly. I mean, things operate in different dimensions in different ways. But dimensions are something that I think we need to give ourselves a sense of who we are and where we are, and therefore we give it a label. And look, I'm quite happy to be called Mr. Sleek. It's something that you first picked up on, and it works for this show.
Yeah.
But certainly in terms of my day-to-day working and so on, interestingly enough, new people coming into my life have no concept of what I was like before. So almost I do have that blank canvas, if you like,
Yes.
as being a medium instead of an XXXL. And I did get to that point.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember one birthday when my mother gave me a Debenhams voucher. And I think it was quite a substantial one. It might have been £50. And I think the idea was for me to go and get a suit. But Debenhams didn't do a suit that was big enough. And then I thought, well, what else can I go and get? A shirt. And the only thing in Debenhams that fit me at that point, because I was coming up to nearly 20 stone, and sort of 52-inch chest, 21-inch neck, 44-inch waist. At that point, there's nothing that'll fit you. So the only thing I could buy with this voucher was socks and ties. And at that point, you know that you are unusual, because Debenhams, being a department store, is essentially going to stock the sizes that it can sell.
Absolutely.
My boy Thomas is looking at, he may well go into for size 13 cricket boots this year. They don't really sell them.
No, I never got that fat. I was fat. I broke my leg when I was about 13, and then basically ate home fries and fried eggs for 6 weeks without getting out of bed and just played EA Sports cricket and got fat and didn't lose the weight until I was about 18. And I found the difference because going through teenage years,
people treat you differently.
Yeah. I mean, I was middle of the range. I wasn't a Premier League footballer. Let's put it that way. Of the school safari park or whatever you want to call it. I wasn't a lion. I was probably close to between a hippo and an antelope. I don't know.
A hopalope.
Yeah, hippolyte is actually what we prefer to be called.
Yeah.
But I wasn't, eyed up by the girls and felt quite, and got. Where do you think I got the name Sci-Pi from?
I don't know. How did you get the name Sci-Pi? Come on, this is a revelation. I tried to get this out of your biographies last week and got nowhere.
Yeah. Well, this is how you'll get it. So I used to,
Be patient.
My friend used to call me. He had various names for me, but Simon Pyman or Sci-Pi was what he used to call me, and I was the biggest one out of our group, so I got ripped for being the fat one. And I'd play along, and I took responsibility for it. And quite literally, I'd go to the fish and chip shop every afternoon after school and fill my boots. It wasn't good for confidence, but yeah, that's how I got the name Sci-Pi.
Oh, I once ate a Ceteris meat and potato pie in one.
In one.
I got it all in my mouth.
Oh Jesus!
And this Ceteris, for those who didn't go to Lawrence Jackson School in Gisborough, these things were sort of dinner plates.
Jesus!
And what I did was I essentially crammed the whole thing, which made everybody laugh enormously.
Yes.
But then I had to somehow find a way to actually eat the thing.
Yes.
And managed.
Okay. I'd say well done if you hadn't probably nearly choked to death.
Absolutely. So size does matter. But try
matter,
not to make it so important to people. Just go with the flow a little bit. I mean, how people look and how they feel are very much affected by how you react to them. And if somebody has lost 5 stone, please be kind to them, because they won't necessarily be feeling that good about themselves, because it is a shock to the system for the individual as well. And I've certainly not got used to being a lot lighter. But tonight, the end of the tunnel is nigh.
Come on, get in.
12 stone 7. Who'd have bloody thought of that? That's bonkers. Right, nice one. Sci-Pi. So that's our 4 squares.
We usually go for
We have a Battenberg slice.
We have a whole slice taped this time. Bloody hell! I'm gonna have to look smart this time. I'm gonna have to get a shirt on. I reckon.
You're not doing it with the shirt off.
Oh, come on. Just once.
Okay.
Nice
Sci-Fi the Poetry Guy, thank you very much.
Mr. Slake.
Nice one.